have a group that's focusing on zoning, land use and zoning ordinances. And then we'll also do some things that have to do with culture and quality of life stuff. So we also will have some discussion of housing, although that may wind up being folded into economy. Economy and zoning actually would be the two places where it may belong. So housing will be in there, but we're trying to figure out how to make a plan that reflects a lot of voices, that but that is really concise, right? So that it's readable. There'll be appendices, and we're hoping quite a number of maps through GIS that would let you put together different layers of data. Some of that already exists and some of it we need to create. But for example, if you wanted to find out where what wetlands and restricted development is, and then put it next to what land the town owns, right? So you could overlay that and see that picture. So we're looking at some things like that. Also a map that may have to do with real estate tax values, so that we can start to get picture.
County's GIS system and then have them plug our information into.
Yes, I just haven't had time to work with them yet. We're just getting
they've
going.
already got the infrastructure there.
Yep.
Easy if we could just overlay it on their data at the county.
Well, I'm gonna go talk to them. Yeah, he's got it.
Is so that we can look up, the public can look up tax
Yeah.
records like we can back in my county?
It's not like Accomat, no.
So-
GIS and Accomat are two different things.
Yeah.
No, I know that, but that's part of it.
So what we've got to do is figure out, we still haven't determined finally what would be the data that we want to represent graphically. That'll be a discussion that takes place over the next few months. But having all these groups come may stretch our timeline out slightly, but we think it's worthwhile. Is to bring people in and have conversations with them about what their vision of the town is, where they see problems, what are the issues that concern them, what do they think the economic issues are.
And the goal of this is?
We're rewriting the comprehensive plan for the town.
And we want to do it with as broad a based set of information.
Yes,
And the pull on as we can.
yeah. And if you look at the current plan that's coming to an end, and you go under economy, there's a little statement and then there's no recommendations, no action steps, it's just a blank.
Right.
So, so Paul is actually leading the working group for economy. Jim McGowan is working on land use and zoning, because it's pretty clear that we're going to be experiencing some development pressures that our zoning ordinances are not necessarily equipped to handle.
Right.
So we need to prepare for that. Then I'm kind of focusing on maps right now. I'm focusing on creating the sort of list of maps and trying to work on the GIS, but I also have been developing a really complete demographic picture of the community using different data commons, US Census, USDA, all kinds of resources online. So I'm going to have a really nice and surprising demographic description of the town. And
If I may.
go ahead.
Well, thank
That
you.
also, Matt has been very, very helpful in getting lists of things from the
Yep.
prior comprehensive plan that have or have not been done and where they are. And that I think was
Yeah.
in the last town council packet. But that's been incredibly useful. And since I interrupted, I also
No, go ahead.
just wanted to say that Cynthia Holdren is looking at editing and then looking at the historical section of an Hancock. I guess, I would describe it as charm, and I don't mean that dismissively. I mean sort of the nature
Right.
and concept of an Hancock.
Right.
And so she's really seriously working on that. I didn't want to leave her.
Oh, no, that's fine. And that sort of goes into quality of life, right? What I'm trying to do is make it so that the lumps or the categories are a little broader and encompass more things, and that's why some things like housing will probably wind up getting divided into zoning and land use and also economy. So, so anyway, we're just getting going. We're just getting to know each other. So we've only had 3 meetings together. So, we're just getting to know each other and getting assignments sorted out and figuring out what we're doing.
And to amplify a little bit more, we're also very consciously thinking about how concepts become siloed in plans. And that we're really working so that we as a group work holistically, and that the output will have silos. Of course, you can't not have special interests and special areas, but that any of those silos are somehow articulated or integrated into other portions, so that it's a little
Right.
more of a living, breathing,
Right.
God willing, edited, not in 5 years, but right,
Right.
sort of an ongoing
Yeah.
plan that's revised every year, or at least looked at.
Yeah, we discovered that part of the mandate for comprehensive plan was that the planning commission should look at it every year and look at the action steps and see if they're still relevant, if any of them been met, what's in progress, and that has not been done. So we will be bringing that process back. But, it's gonna take a little while to get this all sorted out, but I'm hoping the product is gonna be something that is seriously useful, right? That has data at points and things where people are able, even the tree board can look at it and see where they might want to promote more trees, might want to provide free trees or things like that. So,
Well, it doesn't look like anybody else is coming to
Now,
now.
I think
And
we're-
maybe we can just briefly go over what is on the, what's on the agenda. I mean, we don't have to do the call to order because we can't, but.
may I ask you, if you can either email me at casey.greer@onancock.com. We all have Onancock addresses now, but if you want to do August or September, that would be really helpful if I know which one, because then I can approach.
I'm okay with either one. You want to do the beginning of the month?
We meet the first Monday,
I can do either one.
and I think September, I'm trying to think what we did with that.
It's not Labor Day, is it?
It was Labor Day, we moved it to the following Monday.
Yeah, we moved it to the following Monday, so it's the Monday after Labor Day.
I think that. Katie and Lisa probably have much more.
Yeah, you guys have probably
Probably
more
ask the whole-
complexity
Yeah,
in your
that's right.
schedules.
I'm retired.
You don't have to answer right now. I'm just saying that's if we'd like to get you in, and then we'll get Main Street in.
Yeah, thank you
Um,
for sharing all that. It's really interesting.
It's interesting. It's a little mind-boggling right now, but it's really interesting. And the more I learn, I'm taking a course on zoning and planning and stuff through VCU. And unfortunately, it's online,
Right.
but in August through October. So I'm gonna know a lot more about zoning, which I never thought I was interested in learning anything about at all, but you never know.
Zoning's interesting.
It is interesting, it turns
Very
out.
interesting.
And the implications for us right now are profound because there is gonna be more pressure on the community in terms of development, and the question is, can we meet it? Right, and how are we gonna meet it? So,
Right, no, and it's used well. It's a very effective.
mhm.
Yeah, but I've also, I don't know, my experience with comprehensive plans is they can get so wonky and
Right.
that they're not really helpful, right?
See, and we really don't wanna do that. I mean,
Right.
we wanna establish a policy, a general policy, for example, a community approach towards water. Okay,
Yeah.
and then action steps that belong with that, and then figuring out how to implement action steps. So, and then town council is gonna have to approve it anyways. And the way the town council meetings have been going lately, I'm anticipating it might be a complicated process. We'll see.
And town council has to implement.
Yeah, because they've got to
You know,
implement it,
so-
so they got to buy it.
So we can't get too wonky because
No.
they'll reject it out of hand,
Yeah.
and they should.
Right, but trying to build consensus when the other groups, good idea, to write, to get full sort of.
Yeah.
The overall vision statement,
Yeah,
you know, that's.
so at any rate, so that's where we are.
That's an excellent. So,
Thank you.
If you wanna hear an update, that's fine, I don't believe if this is gonna be our agenda for the next meeting,
Right,
so.
well, I spoke with, I see that we have an update here
Mhm.
from Ann Kyle. But I spoke this week to Jacob Yeager, who's the code enforcement officer in Accomack. And I asked him what was going on. I had met with him actually last fall. So he said, there's no permit in effect now. Because they haven't had requested an inspection for more than 6 months. He said there's been absolutely no change in anything as far as they're concerned since 11/24. And they only have a temporary certificate of occupancy for the first floor commercial only. And from his perspective, it looks like the rest of the project is like just moribund or in a coma or whatever. But here's the problem, because I took a look at the loan agreement and the promissory note. Which is a three-way agreement
Right.
between Williston, us, and the town and the state. So the documents were executed March 26th of 2024. It said the work completion date, and it's a hard date, is July 8th of 2025. It says the final request for payment, and I don't know how much is remaining in the account. Matt, do you know? That's been unpaid to Williston,
It's been fully paid,
so they've received every nickel,
yes.
even though they haven't finished the work.
They weren't required to finish the work in order to be paid.
Okay, well, the final request has to be 8/8/25. And they said the funds not expended by that date are subject to reappropriation. And we have to give a closeout report to the state by 2/8/26, so February 8th of next year. Showing exactly how the project was handled and that it was handled in compliance with the approved grant proposal. So. We have to make sure we can meet that criteria, otherwise they will try to claw back money. And we don't want to be in that position. Also, just in respect to the EDA, and I don't see any exclusion to this whatsoever. The EDA, the law says the EDA shall arrange to have its records audited annually. And they're supposed to be accessible to the general public. So we haven't had an audit, and we really have to have an audit. And I really think that because. The
I'm not
work,
sure what they're gonna audit this year, because we never had the money
Well, we
in our
paid-
account,
no,
we pay,
paid out, we paid out $1 million left.
the town paid it out.
It
Under,
came out through us.
the town might have a single audit, which is so fun.
That's the town audit, but the.
I thought we would do a consolidated audit, didn't we talk about this?
We do, it's part of,
I-
it's part of the town's. audit.
I don't know, cause I'm not an attorney, that, we can do a consolidated audit. This is just with the law with respect to EDAs, and it says. It says the board shall keep detailed minutes of its proceedings, which shall be open to public inspections at all time. It shall keep suitable records of its financial transactions, and by the board, they mean the EDA, they're not saying the town, they're not saying.
But we haven't actually.
And
signed a
unless
single
exempted
transaction,
by.
right.
By subsection 30-140, shall arrange to have the records audited annually. Copies of each such audit shall be furnished to the governing body of the locality and shall be open to public inspection.
Yeah.
So. I don't know, because I'm not an EDA attorney, that we have an exemption or that we can do a combined audit. And I still think we need an EDA attorney that can guide us on this as opposed to. What our accountant says or what the town's attorney said, because we are a separate body that can be sued, and that's clear in the EDA
Yes,
documents.
But my recollection is that when we set this up, that we voted to let the town administer this grant. So we don't have, we're not.
Well, I don't think we did. I think that what we said was that Matt is the treasurer. But he's not an officer of the EDA. That's what we said at the time.
By voting him to be the treasurer, he became an officer.
Well,
No,
he's an
he
officer,
doesn't
but
have to be an
I'm sorry,
officer.
an officer, but he's not a member.
Yeah.
Right, no, that's
sorry,
true,
sorry.
right.
So he's not a member of the EDA. But I do think we need an attorney that can tell us, are we doing this right?
I think that's fair.
Because if we don't do
We
it
can't.
right, and the state can at all claw back any of this money, which maybe they will, maybe they won't. You know, I don't wanna be in deep doo-doo because, we don't wanna hire an attorney and spend a couple of $100 on an attorney that knows this stuff cold and says, okay, you're fine, you don't have to do an independent audit, you can combine it with the town. Or the attorney says, what are you crazy, you have to do an audit.
Okay.
And also. The. Williston doesn't have to start paying back the money until they get a permanent C of O. Now, what if they don't get a permanent C of O for another 2 years?
Oh, I think she's trying, they want to be renting those spaces upstairs, I think they're
Well,
financially.
They may
motivated.
be,
Yeah.
I'm sure they're financially motivated, but they haven't done anything for the past 6 months, according to.
Well, I know they've been
That's-
working on
yeah.
it, cause I get my hair done underneath.
Well,
but
Jaeger
it-
says they shouldn't be working on it because they don't have a permit. Now, I don't really care if they don't have a permit and they're working on it, but I'm just saying from his perspective. The deal is like, the project isn't going anywhere.
But
Because they
that's
don't,
not the report we got from the property. Right, and that's not.
this is the report you're getting
Right.
from the county. The county says they don't have a permit, so they shouldn't be working. And there's no request for inspections, and as far as we're concerned, they're not doing anything, and all they have is a temporary certificate of occupancy. The downstairs, which they've had since last September or something.
Okay, well, I think we should at least speak with the property owner, who's our contract, right? I think we should speak directly with them. We have a report from them that they're doing this work diligently.
And then they should have a
Okay,
permit.
that's fine.
They should, I mean, I don't know, I don't think it's a terrible.
Right.
I don't think it's onerous for them to get a permit. But I think, again, we need to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. I'm not looking to give them a hard time, I'm just looking to get this finished. See when we start getting paid, and look, if they decide, they're gonna sit on this for another 6 months. What does that mean? That it
We'll
means
have to
that
talk to Matt about.
Well, it means that the towns-
Extension.
EHCP's already given us an extension
Okay,
so
in the
that-
last quarterly report, I had to file.
that's great, but how long are we going to give them the extension for before they have to really start paying this back, which again is the reason why we need an attorney. So I am pressing for us to have an attorney who can answer these questions. Because I only know what I'm reading. And what I'm reading, and I'm used to reading New York City docs, and they're always think, and it's easy to do.
UHC does not wanna come and take their money back, they're definitely, and that's, they've already granted an extension, they want the project to
Could
work.
you send us a copy of that extension, Matt?
Sure.
Thank you.
And I think it's totally fair that we get an attorney, because there's some other questions that
Yeah.
were just set up appropriately, I think that's fair. But we can't decide anything right now.
No, we can't. Well, the only thing I would ask is that I sent out the names of some attorneys some months ago, maybe we could give them a call and just talk to them.
Okay,
They're across the bay. They're, for a consultation, it shouldn't, they. The attorneys that I spoke to over there, we
not
do this,
you're right.
do
That's
this
a fair
stuff all the
point.
time,
Okay,
what about this, what about this,
Yeah.
what about this, how do we handle it? Let's just,
all right, and we can put these questions.
and
to
then,
bed, but
you
your
can-
mind is.
yeah, and
Yeah.
then,
Okay.
once we hire one of them as an attorney, we can put the questions to, they can give us the answers, and then at least we know what we're going on. And you don't know, you've never done this, I don't know, I've never done this, Katie's an attorney, but this isn't her area of expertise, so let's just get an expert.
So, if we can talk real quick about the agenda, since we'll pretty much just keep this one for the next one, I will go ahead and work on the minutes. I think I've already got them, just gotta format them, I'll do that. And then like I said, I did pull a template, Matt's got one for how we wanna structure it, and then the types and an application.
The idea of a revolving loan.
Yeah, but we need the document itself as well, so I did pull a template for that, which I could start writing some more.
Well, you mean a revolving loan from the money that we get back from?
Yes,
Okay, but you
because I
know,
think people are gonna be on our doorstep right quick.
yeah, well, I have to tell you that I think the revolving loan based on the idea that it wouldn't kick in until they get a permanent C of O. I think that worked against us. I think it should be revolving loan with a different start date to trigger back payments, but it has to be something that makes sense. You know.
The big thing that, and that one, I was just looking at it the other day, trying to type some things in, is the criteria in which we're gonna be allowed to throw it back out there.
They've softened their
I think
touch
they
a
did,
lot,
Yeah,
so they said as long as it generally meets. Bringing a building back from blighted or bad.
it's still to be empty,
They're not saying it has to be empty.
because that was just part of the criteria, I
Yeah.
guess, as long as the
There were
project.
5
needs-
criteria
Yeah.
when we first got this, but they've softened them. Because small towns will only have one building that'll qualify, and then they'll just end up with,
That's right.
you know.
Yeah, the law is actually pretty broad if you read it as to what, you know, we can lend the money to. And there's nothing in there that.
Oh, I see all kinds of opportunities for us to be
Yeah,
very
I think
comfortable.
there's smaller too, right? It
Yeah,
has to be
exactly, it
a
doesn't have to be,
transformative project.
it doesn't have
Right.
to be, no. But they have to be able to pay the money back, and it can't be something that, you're giving money and it's, the likelihood of it being paid back is like, you know, 0 and nil. You know, it has to be something that looks like a viable option.
Okay.
And it can't be that we can even buy property, renovate it and sell it, but we
Or
can't,
rent it,
we can't run it as a rental.
no, we can't run it, but we could rent it to somebody to run. And then we would get that, I did see
No.
that, I'm pretty sure that was in the, and I didn't bring my. big copy.
When I read it through, it was that you have to sell it, you can't run it as a rental
No,
property.
no, we wouldn't run the rental property, somebody else, if they want, somebody else would come in and manage it, but we would also get income off that.
Maybe that's another thing
Yeah.
to ask the EDA attorney.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
know it.
it's been a while since I read it, but I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that was also one of the cap.
Yeah.
And if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Oh,
May I ask something from the audience? Because what's not clear to me is, you know, this seems like it's pretty urgent, but you're only meeting quarterly.
Yeah, well, we need to meet more than quarterly. I mean, I would say that we probably should meet in August at the latest. You know, we should be.
This is an issue that
First
strikes
of all,
me.
we don't even have a meeting here.
Now, this is just a discussion now because of the lack of a forum, but we decided last time that we function.